Hey, this is EDL 853 Special Education Interviews. The child find procedure was the first thing I asked about. The administrator I spoke with was our elementary school principal. She said that the process is actually not just one entity, it's between social services, the daycare providers in the area, the actual parents, and the elementary school. And then they work cooperatively to bring the kids to our school on a specific date, and then we have a second entity that comes in, and their title is BOCES. I'm sure you've heard of them. And they come in and they actually screen these kids. So they help us with that process. The special education teacher just reiterated basically the same thing, but she did add that it's open to the public and that it doesn't matter if your child is 7 years old or 3 years old, it doesn't matter. Bring that kid in if you want them screened and they will screen them. It's absolutely one of those identification processes. And then she also added that the early childhood SPED teacher, once they have gone through that screening process, if they have been tagged as needing a little extra help, she will go ahead and use either the TIMA, the TARA, or the TOWEL test, which is the math, the reading, and a writing test to help further identify if those kiddos need extra help. On the special education aid, she said she wasn't really sure on the procedures of child find except for what her own child had gone through, so she didn't really comment much. The second question we asked was, what do you find to be the most challenging part of your role with regards to special education, and why? My principal said it was actually, in regards to special education, it was actually with a student who had a second language. So she didn't know, when you're looking at a kiddo who has second language issues, or not issues, but is an ELL or an ESL, she said, nearly impossible when they first come to you to find out if it's that language piece that they're struggling with, or if it's actually an academic struggle that is beneath the language piece. And I can see where she's coming from on that. That would be very hard to identify. Our special education teacher said that her most challenging piece was actually balancing act between her full-time teaching, getting her meetings in, doing her paperwork, and the testing. She's only allowed to have one planning period a day like a regular classroom teacher, and that is the time that she is supposed to get her planning done, her extra testing done, as well as any meetings she may have. So that balancing act is tough for her because she just doesn't feel like she has enough time in the day to do the administrative piece of her special education job. And our aide that I spoke with is a center-based aide, so she works with high-need students, and we have several of them that rotate from the elementary to the middle to the high school and then back. She said that depending on the student, they either rotate day to day or week to week with these kiddos, and she said it's really hard to adjust to their issues and their needs because they're not with them a long enough period of time to get that over familiarity, where they can actually know before something's going to happen what's going to happen. But she did mention that they rotate that way so the children don't become overly reliant on one aide, and I can see that as well. The next question we asked is, what is the most rewarding part of their job when dealing with special education students, parents, and or other teachers, and why? My principal, I swear she's strawberry shortcake. She's the cutest little thing. She says that she enjoys hearing when students have met their goals or have mastered a skill. Absolutely 100%. That might sound like a carbon copy answer. Absolutely 100% authentic from her. She is all about those kids making a goal or making progress. So when they've made that progress, it makes her whole day. And she literally sends out kudos to teachers on what a great job they're doing. She's just a really good, positive administrator. Our special education teacher said her most rewarding moment with a student is that light bulb moment. So you know what I'm talking about. Everybody has that moment with those kids when they just struggle so hard and that one kid finally gets it. That light bulb moment, she said, is the actual reason that she got into teaching. And then as far as parents go, she said that 9 times out of 10, she has found that special education parents don't take an active role in their children's educational lives. And she said, so when a parent actually does take an active role and wants to help at home and back them up, she said that is a huge, huge reward for not only her, but also the child, because their gains are that much more and their progress is that much faster. And our special education aide actually commented on all three. She said, whether or not the students know that that I'm caring for them. She said the most rewarding part is having that kid show improve, or whether they show improvement or not, it's me knowing that I'm helping that kid, whether it's having a better day or I'm helping them academically. She said some of these kids, it's strictly that they need love. And she said that it doesn't matter if they show improvement. The biggest reward for her is knowing that those kids got a little bit of love during the day. As far as parents, she said she doesn't really deal with the parents, so she doesn't have a rewarding part for that. But then she said, as far as working with other teachers, she said her biggest reward is when a classroom teacher values her opinion. And I agree, that would be pretty big. The next question we asked was, what advice do you have on supervision of special education staff, including paras, speech pathologists, etc.? Well, like I said earlier, we don't have much more in our building as far as supervision is concerned with speech pathologists, hearing pathologists, psychologists, that kind of thing, because they are all sourced out through our BOCES program. But we do have interventionists, inclusionists, paraprofessionals, and that is what these answers are speaking to. Our administrator said she is all about supporting, supervising in a supportive way and making you feel validated about the challenging work that you do. And she absolutely understands how hard it is to work with special education students. And there's a lot of times you'll find her in the center-based room trying to help out if they're having a rough day. For the special education teacher, she said her biggest part for supervision is actually seeing if they have taken the lesson that she has written and carried it out like she wrote it. So, making sure it's an authentically carried out lesson. She said the other piece for her that is super hard is finding that extra time to collaborate with classroom teachers. And then the special education aide also, again, said she didn't really know since she doesn't supervise anybody. How do you work effectively with parents of special needs students? So, our administrator said that she goes to meetings, she's in the general education classroom. She does a lot of normal administrative duties as far as working effectively with parents. I honestly don't think she goes above and beyond the special needs portion any more than she does regular classroom student, except for IEP, 504 behavioral meetings, that sort of thing. Other than that, she is pretty much working with parents on the same basis that she works with regular classroom parents. Our special education teacher just highlighted the types of communications she has with parents because she communicates a lot with parents. She said that depending on the parent and what their preferred communication method was, it was either emails, phone calls, notes, or they came in and just had face-to-face meetings with her. Our special education aide said that she doesn't work with parents, that she works with her supervising teacher, and then her supervising teacher works with her parents. So basically, she works with the SPED teacher, and then that SPED teacher collaborates with her on the parents' wishes. How do you work with a regular ed teacher with students with special needs? Our administrator took a very administrative angle on this one. She said that she sets the expectations for the center-based coordinators. Then she consults with classroom teachers on every week, if not on a daily basis. This helps classroom teachers establish an environment that is conducive to the learning for all students. She does do this. I don't really think she does it as much as she thinks she does it, but that can be a reflection piece. The special education teacher said at the beginning of the year, she goes through her snapshots and her goals, which she does, and she collaborates on a regular basis as much as she can with the SPED or with the regular education teachers, and she does do that. And then she also comes up with ideas for accommodations when she can help us in the classroom. And then the special education aide said that she's super lucky to have had all really good regular ed classroom teachers to work with, that they collaborate with her on a regular basis and they always back her up if she needs it, which is really, really good to hear. And then it says, what advice do you have to give to a first-year administrator? My administrator, oh my gosh, I could have written a book on all the advice she gave. So I just kind of grabbed 2 key points that she talked about. She really said that the advice for a first-year administrator is to make sure that you're familiar with the RTA process and you know what it takes to collect a body of evidence and provide appropriate intervention for a student. So you want to make sure you know what you're doing before you get in there, at least a little bit, because if not, you're going to be basically run over. She also said that you need to get to know your special education teacher on a personal level, and you need to listen to their personal challenges they're having with their kids, not just to deal with them on a, okay, so what's going on with this kid today basis. She said you need to know them personally. Our special education teacher said if she had advice to give, it would be have faith in those teachers because they know how to do their jobs. Keep those lines of communication open. Be supportive. Please try to work with teachers. Don't contradict them. And always, if you have a question, ask. Don't assume. Our special education aide said she would advise to take that time to observe a student with their sped aide, to get to know the classroom dynamic that child is in, and then to get to know the student really well outside of that, so you know what you're dealing with when you have to deal with them outside of that time. How do you describe the role of the special education teacher and the building principal? Well, my building principal, again, took a very administrative angle on this. And she said that the role of the special education teacher and the principal is to collaborate for the best interest of the student, teacher, and parent. Okay, that's like a textbook answer. And the special education teacher said that her responsibilities, and she went into what her actual responsibilities were. So she just listed them all out for me, and then she said, as far as the building principal, the main thing that she does is behavioral management. And she just kind of gave me this rolled eyes thing. So I'm thinking that she is not very happy with that. The special education aide says she's responsible for carrying out those lessons that the SPED teacher has written, and she's responsible for supporting those students, physically supervising them, as well as making sure they're safe, and collaborating with the regular classroom teacher. What characteristics do you seek in aspiring administrators with regards to special education? So my administrator, again, I could have written a book. She said the first thing you need to do is listen to the needs of your SPED teacher, which I absolutely agree with. That you need to work diligently to meet those needs of that special education teacher, and that everybody needs to be on the same page all the time if possible, at least as much as possible. The special education teacher said we need to be supportive and supportive of the time it takes to complete paperwork and all the other duties she has, as well as having a principal that understands those needs. And she wants us to be receptive and allow extra time for those things like paperwork that do take a ton of time. On the special education aide, she just said, be aware of what we actually do. Be supportive of us and our efforts, even if we're not successful, and understand how stressful that our position actually is. So my reflection, my evaluation, and my future thought. So my reflection on this is that I found it very interesting how my principal had a very administrative angle versus my special education teacher, because they really didn't have at all the same thing. I was actually a little surprised at some of the stuff my special education teacher said on how she's not supported as much as she feels she could be, and how my principal has contradicted her on some of the things. And it's just, I don't want to say shocking, but it's interesting to hear where our principal does not have a special education background, how she's come in and kind of cut the feet out from underneath our special education teacher. So I thought that was interesting. Reflecting on it, I just think it's crazy. I think that the paras do a ton of really hard work. I think the special education teacher is underappreciated and doesn't have enough time. And I think the principal, in this case, is taking a little too much credit for what she is doing. My future thoughts is that I would like to balance it out a little better. I'd like to give those aides the support they need and let them know that they are supported and appreciated. I want to make sure that that special education teacher has the time she feels she needs to get her work done and feel supported and appreciated. And I, again, need to stick my head out and do more, because my job is not just inside that office, which the current principal is just inside the office. My job is inside those classrooms as well. And I need to make sure that I am seen, I am available, and that those kids and the teachers know that I am there for them.